Small intestine 17 is located on the side of the neck, in between the sternocleidomastoid and the angle of the mandible. Palpate along the posterior and inferior borders of that mandible to make sure that you find the point where it changes direction. Don't just rely on where the flesh is changing direction. You need to be sure that you've actually found the angle. Mark your point in between the sternocleidomastoid and the angle of the mandible. It's in a nice depression. It's not on bone, it's not on muscle. It's in a depression in between the two. Sanjiao 17 is located in a dip behind the earlobe. It's between the ramus of the mandible and the mastoid process. Be careful that you don't put this point on bone. It's in between the bones in a dip. When a person opens their jaw, a groove opens up anterior to the tragus. Gallbladder 2 is located in this groove anterior to the infratragic notch. When a person opens their jaw, a groove forms anterior to the tragus. Palpate into that groove and locate small intestine 19 in that groove anterior to the midpoint of the tragus. When a person opens their jaw, a groove forms anterior to the tragus. Palpate in this groove and locate Sanjiao 21 in this groove anterior to the supratragic notch. Gallbladder 3 is located directly above stomach 7. Palpate over the zygomatic arch and feel for a nice dip just above its superior border. Sanjiao 19 is located 2/3 of the distance between Sanjiao 17 and Sanjiao 20, level with the rim of the ear when it's pressed against the side of the head. Sanjiao 15 is located in the suprascapular fossa. It's halfway between Do14 at the base of C7 and the lateral extremity of the acromion. It's also located halfway between gallbladder 21 and small intestine 13. Small intestine 9 is located on the posterior aspect of the shoulder, about 1 cun superior to the posterior axillary crease. How do you find this 1 cun? Well, it's important to place this point inferior to the inferior border of the deltoid. To bring this into relief, the person can push their arm backwards. You're feeling for a nice soft area below the muscle. It's important to remember that when you finally locate this point, you need to be completely parallel to the part of the body you're working on. Small intestine 9. Pericardium 9 is found at the very tip of the middle finger. An alternative location is the radial nail point of the same finger. Be sure to mark this point clear of the nail bed.
Large intestine 4, you're going to find the length of the second metacarpal bone. So running your finger down, finding the base, making sure that you're not actually on the carpal bones themselves, finding the midpoint of that shaft of bone, coming between the first and second metacarpals, nearer to the second than the first in the muscle.
Large intestine 10 is located 10 cm proximal to large intestine 5 on a line heading towards large intestine 11. Palpate along that line and fall into a nice groove in the muscle at 10 cm.
Sanjiao 2 between the 4th and 5th fingers, half a cm within the web margin. So bring the 2 fingers away from each other, feel for the flare of the bone of the 4th, and come out into the margin between those 2 bones.
Sanjiao 9 is located 7 cm proximal to Sanjiao 4 on a line heading towards the lateral epicondyle of the humerus. It's located in between the radius and the ulna in a nice groove between 2 muscles. Small intestine 3 is on the ulnar aspect of the hand. It's in a depression which is proximal to the head of the 5th metacarpal. It's in between the metacarpal bone and the muscle, and it typically lays on a level with the distal palmar crease. Small intestine 5 is on the ulnar aspect of the wrist in a depression between the triquetral bone and the head of the ulna. The small intestine channel is starting to travel more dorsally, so you can find this point between 2 tendons that are running across the wrist joint. Sanjiao 7 is located 3 cm proximal to Sanjiao 4. It's in between the radius and the ulna, but it's on the ulnar side of the tendon of extensor digitorum communis. This tendon comes into relief when the fingers are wiggled.
Small intestine 8 is between the olecranon process and the medial epicondyle of the humerus. Make sure you don't have the arm fully flexed for this point because it will be impalpable.
Bladder 65 is located on the lateral aspect of the foot in a dip which is proximal and inferior to the head of the 5th metatarsal. It's the knuckle of the little toe. Move proximally and inferiorly and fall into a nice dip. Once again, be careful not to mark this point too much onto the sole of the foot. It's on the side of the foot. Bladder 62 is located half a cm inferior to the inferior border of the lateral malleolus. It is located posterior to the perineal tendons. To bring the perineal tendons into relief, evert the foot. This is the peroneal tendon here. When the foot is relaxed, the point can then be marked behind it. Kidney 2 is located distal and inferior to the tuberosity of the navicular bone. To find this bone, place your finger on the medial malleolus and then move down and slightly anterior until you come to a very prominent bony lump. If you come too far forwards, you will fall onto a different bone, the cuneiform bone, but it doesn't stand out so much. When you find this bony lump, mark your point, kidney 2, just distal and inferior to it. Stomach 36 is located approximately 13 sun superior to the prominence of the lateral malleolus on the anterior border of tibialis anterior. The easiest way to find it is to palpate down the tibial tuberosity. Find the base of the tibial tuberosity and move slightly laterally until you fall into a nice dip on the anterior border of tibialis anterior. This point is also 3 sun inferior to the inferior border of the patella.